Hello and welcome to the Help Is Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Today we're welcoming on the podcast Dan for the first time. Welcome on the show, Dan. We've also got Mary today. So Dan's going to be a special guest because he's just completed the Beyond Compulsion method in terms of like the training. You know, he's been in the program a while, still using his script, doing really, really well. We're just going to be talking about the method a bit, Dan's experience with it, how things are now versus in the past. So yeah, welcome on the show, guys. Great to have you both here. Dan, do you want to kind of start off by maybe just talking a little bit about your experience of like learning the method and how it's kind of changed your thinking around things, and maybe like where you were in the past versus where you feel you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me. Just briefly, when I joined the program, that was last year in September, so some 6 months ago, I already had some kind of experience with trying to overcome the compulsion, and that was basically going on for a couple of years, but really intensively last 2 years. And I really tried like as much as I could. I was motivated to stop, but at the same time, I just couldn't because it was compulsive and basically, the methods that I tried, they didn't work. I didn't pay much. I didn't go to any kind of special program, but I followed all the different strategies and advices from the scientific point of view. I went to therapy. I was listening to different like advices on how to program oneself, and I also participated in some kind of like these chat rooms. So I tried everything which basically one can find on internet or in the information space today, and it all was like massively failing. So then I was listening to a podcast, and you two were there, and it got me inspired to actually like give it a try because it was something different. And I remember that I was really pushed by the let's say tangible approach, because you were giving a method, you were giving much more than just like you should do this to substitute it. You should program yourself by telling yourself something like that, and so on. But you were mentioning a script that might help one to overcome it, and also to rewrite the neural pathways of the compulsivity. So I gave it a try, and so basically at the very beginning, when we started, and when you told me what to do, I went through the program, which is very simple but very robust, and I think it's very easy to understand it. And it's mostly about practicing it. So at the very beginning of stopping my compulsive behavior, I felt very, very good, and I really like kind of understood what is this about. That is not about checking every day, like, and trying to have a streak of I don't know how many days, but it is basically about mindset in every single moment. But since this was a long-term compulsivity for me, I had 2 relapses. But I think this is also quite interesting, and obviously we say that a relapse is not a part of the journey. Is basically getting to the very beginning. So I restarted twice, but at the same time, it held it together. So I didn't fall apart because of this, and I got myself together and started again. So it didn't break my confidence, and I also got a lot of support from the mates, from the community. So basically now I have this full confidence that I can go on without this compulsive behavior, but at the same time I'm still using the methods, and I will keep doing that for quite some time, I think. But at the same time, I am not haunted by fear or doubts or something like that. And I feel really, really great at this point.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like it's the method that you say it's tangible when you hear us talking about it. It's not like something that's, kind of open to interpretation. It's very specific to be able to deal with those compulsions and with the compulsion. And then like you say, even though you had relapses, nothing changed. You still go back to the one thing that you do repetitively in order to change the pathways. So yeah, good for you. I'm so glad that you were able to get to where you are today. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm quite glad you brought up the point about
Yeah.
relapsing as well, because I think it is key to understand that even with this method, like relapse is still possible. Like it's always going to be an option, as we know, right? Of course, we don't say like, oh yeah, relapse is part of recovery, because we understand how the neural pathways work. But what I would love is for you to share, if you like, how you relapsed in the past and like what you would do in the past, because at least for me anyway, when I relapsed before this method, I'd be like spiraling, try a different method, do all these different random things, like go online, like try find more solutions. Whereas what I love about this is you can have that stability and that steady approach of, okay, I've relapsed. Sure, we take it seriously. There's serious consequences. We experience that for ourselves. But at the same time, we don't then go searching for another solution. It's just like, okay, let's get back to the basics, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I had all the time full confidence that this is the method that I'm going to try for quite a long time. Um, One thing that changed in me was at the beginning, I was kind of like confident that I can do it like very quickly. Yeah, so it's going to take like 1 or 2 months. And then when I realized that this is no joke and it can take some effort, I actually dedicated myself to stay in the program for a longer time. So therefore, I decided to stay for another 4 months, and I think this was important for myself in a way that I kind of like persuaded myself that this is the priority number one that I want to focus on, and that there's no other way, that I want to waste time with. So absolutely. And in terms of this, how it happened, it's kind of like basically I already knew that it's gonna happen, and we already talk about it. Yeah, so we have the method, we have the script, and I basically didn't use the script when it looked like it's a very, how say, it was in a disguise basically. It wasn't engaging as such, but it was a mild peek into it, and it was a slippery road that pulled me in. Yeah, so that's, and that happened twice. Yeah. The interesting thing is that because like for some time I was afraid that that this might happen again, but the interesting thing is that I now have a totally different point of view on it, because just a couple of days ago I was describing like the way I was engaging, especially with the AI chats, because I have quite a imaginative mind and I like stories and stuff like that. So the way I was engaging was not that much visual, and at the end it was more like imagining and using the AI chat for it. And I described some of the things to a friend of mine just 2 days ago, and it stirred a lot of this kind of like, I would say, um, this imagination in me. And it was very alluring, which for a while I thought I wouldn't have. I thought that like for the last 2 months, almost 3 months, I really didn't have any kind of desire connected to engaging. But this one was a little bit different. It was like really touching me from inside, and like it was really stirring up the whole desire thing. And it brought some kind of urges, but at the same time, I still had this confidence that I have the method, and I don't need to, like fight with it. And it didn't fail me, and I just used the method. I read the script multiple times, and it took 1 or 2 days, and I even enjoyed it because I knew that um the more seductive it is, the more like pulling it is, the more desire I feel when I'm using the script, the better it is for rewiring. And so the more I change the attitude. And I can also kind of like understand what it means, like to rewire the brain, because this is exactly that, like you don't feel like a small boat in an ocean which is under a storm, but you're much more under control of your decision making. Yeah, so you're much more rational, and this doesn't mean that you will not have some urges or some desires, but it is much more under your control because you know that you can do it. You've done it already, and even more interestingly, you remember that you kind of like relapsed, but it doesn't undermine the confidence, So, uh, so you can learn it, you can build on it, and you can even like feel it. It's really something very, very real. Yeah.
I love that you can go into the AI world in a reasonable way. You got something to teach the world there, Dan, because we're going off the rails with the AI, and it is seductive, it is compelling, just the whole nature of AI, and then being able to transfer what you've learned and how you've changed your neural pathways doing this method, overcoming your porn addiction, into that, and then being able to benefit and use AI for your work in a reasonable way, and not just go down a complete and total rabbit hole. So yeah, good for you.
Yeah. And I think the stability of being able to experience those strong desires, but then just simply go to the script, think it through rationally. Yeah, it may take a little bit of time, but you get through to the other side. And that's where you really grow in that confidence, and that belief really changes, because it's like, okay, well, I've just experienced some really strong desire. And yeah, that was really uncomfortable, but I know how to handle that. So then what happens is you lose that fear of, oh, how do I solve this problem? Because it's just like you understand that, well, the problem is, how do I respond to compulsive desire? And if you've solved that problem repeatedly over and over and over, then it's like, okay, well, if I have more desires in the future, I know what to do. I'll just go use the script and I'm going to be fine. So do you think that's kind of been a big shift for you, is learning how to actually deal with those desires and like understanding what the whole problem was? And how has that whole experience kind of changed your life, and what benefits has it led to for you, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. So it taught me a whole bunch of stuff. It's not just about overcoming this particular compulsion, although it is a big deal. But the great thing about it is that you don't just delete this compulsion from your brain or from your memory or whatever, from your habits and stuff like that. You learn much more by this method because it teaches you how to embrace the temporary discomfort that comes connected with the impulses of addiction and of similar behaviors. And I think this is really strong, yeah, because I don't know, like I guess this was one of the reasons why I ended up using porn and using masturbation as a compulsive way of engaging. That I was kind of like trying to avoid these feelings of discomfort, and like uh, unknowingly, but at the same time, I just didn't know that, and I was doing it for a long time, and only when I discovered the beyond compulsion method did I get some kind of access to look at the moment when the desire comes, and it kind of like tries to um, flood you with all those scary thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. But when you look at it like really in how to say, like if you look at it at the moment, and you are very honest with yourself, you're not trying to kind of like block it and like freak out. It's just a little bit of a discomfort, yeah. And the discomfort can be bigger, it can be longer, but at the end, when you try to overcome it, when you put the effort to go through it, and you end up on the other side, you're gonna see that it's much more different to what you thought it was when you encountered it from the front. Yeah. So when you look at it from the back, it's much less scarier, and this whole thing helps you to focus on different kinds of compulsions in your life. So yeah, we can have different kinds of them, and the problem is that our culture is really not helping. It's rather promoting quite a few of them, like food compulsion, all this attention robbing industries, such as social media and stuff. Like that's very scary, and AI is probably part of that. And yeah, like procrastination, alcohol and cigarettes, like you name it, drugs, whatever. All these things are the same pattern. And the interesting thing is that it's not like that you have to deal with every one of them, like each individual, but it's the same thing which is like underneath. Yeah. So if you focus a lot on one, then it's much easier to work with the others. Yeah. That doesn't mean that they go away, but you know how to work with them, and it's much easier. So yeah, and this is about compulsions, but the discomfort teaches you also to embrace life in a much broader sense. So sometimes you're scared of something, sometimes you don't want to go somewhere. And this is the same thing. Yeah, it's just a little bit of discomfort, and you can access it. So I was using my script to overcome my anxiety from I don't know, talking to strangers, yeah, or doing some things that I was afraid of, yeah. So you can see it's a different thing. Yeah? It's like the other one was like stopping myself from doing something, but you can also use it the other way around for, let's say, allowing yourself to go somewhere, because I think it's very important to say that we're not using willpower. Yeah, so we're not pushing somewhere. We're not pushing us somewhere. We're not forcing through some I don't know, like some kind of barrier, but we're rather saying, okay, so here and now I've got this method which tells me that if I embrace this discomfort, it's going to be fine. Yeah. And here are the consequences which are positive, and here are the consequences which are negative. Yeah, and I can choose which I want, and this is like it works like magic, and you don't really need to have a strong willpower. You just need to be kind of like honest with yourself and a little bit how to say, motivated to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just stopping an action, but taking action. Like I think when you went to the dance class, right? It's like the kind of the social anxiety, the discomfort of stepping into that environment. But then you got through that and thinking in a way, using the tool, using the script, and then you got the payoff of really having a great time and meeting some people, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually like just recently I was attending a dancing lesson, so I can totally subscribe to that.
Yeah, I remember
definitely.
that. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's an interesting point about how you kind of train yourself through the script and going through those compulsive desires to experience that temporary discomfort. And so you know that feeling and you get comfortable with the discomfort. So it's like you're comfortable with the uncomfortable, and therefore it can spill out into all these different areas of your life. And it's like, oh, a few days ago, I'm like, hey, Dan, want to come on the podcast? You're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And it's like, maybe a year ago or whatever, you probably would have been like, oh, well, I'm not going to go tell the whole world about this problem, whatever. Like you wouldn't understand it in the way you do now and have that comfort to go do that. Or even if it is uncomfortable today, you know, coming on it, I don't know whether it is or not for you, to be honest. But it's like either way, it's like, well, that's just an emotion. But rationally, I can weigh up the choice and go, okay, I want to go do this, even though maybe it's going to be uncomfortable. And then it really, really gives you that foundation where you do feel solid within yourself, and therefore you're more risk taking and you can be more courageous, and you can feel a little bit like, okay, well, yeah, life's going to be tough at times. Like, it's not always perfect and easy, but I'm going to be equipped to deal with that. And that's the other thing I'd love to ask you about, actually, is like, you know, we're having a bit of a conversation, I think, on WhatsApp earlier about the like whole no fat benefits and this idea that you're going to hit a certain amount of days and, you know, everything's going to transform. You're going to have these superpowers. Do you want to kind of share your perspective on that side of things, and what your experience has been like in reality in terms of actually stopping pornography?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I never went to a paid program which would have this as a let's say as a plan, but I did some kind of like 90 days of no porn and 30 days without masturbation myself, and I must say that while it did have some benefits, like some short-term benefits, such as, you know, you get a little bit of confidence, you overcome some limits of, you know, the body and stuff like that, which are connected to engaging and so on. And you're less anxious and stuff like that. You will not overcome the addiction, the compulsive behavior. The habit is still there, and you can fall into it like really easily back. Yeah. And I remember when I was talking to some therapeutic person, she told me that, you know, because I mentioned this to her, and she said, "Oh yeah, but you know, this is going to be there for the whole life. Yeah? You have to you have to accept that you're going to be addicted for the whole life." And I don't believe that. Yeah, because I think, like, yes, if you use methods such as avoiding and or just no fab and I don't know, therapy or even meditation. Although I'm a big fan of meditation. I've been meditating for the last 25 years. But it's not the method to overcome the compulsive neural pathways that one have. Yeah. So while I think meditation is a good thing for like bringing yourself better in the moment of here and now, so it's kind of like easier to recognize when the urge is coming, you know, look at the discomfort. So I think I had a slight advantage of that, but at the same time, you know, the meditation didn't help me to overcome it. But I didn't use it for that purpose. Yeah, so that was kind of like a different thing. But yeah, so what I said earlier, all these nonsense methods, especially the avoidant methods, they not only don't overcome the addiction, they also, I think, promote a little bit of like this helplessness, because they disempower you from really like being you in this moment and making the choice and telling yourself, I can do that. Yeah. So I think this is one of the other important things that one learns in the program, and it's actually connected to the confidence. This is the other part, the other side of this. Yeah. So you can be confident that you can do it. You don't need to take away all the devices and lock this somewhere. You know, it's even worse if you do it and then you go and you take it back and engage and do it anyway, because then the effect is even worse. Yeah. So I think this is such a great thing that you can do it. You like nothing really like blocks you from doing it, but you have the method, you have the confidence, and you have the power of the present moment where you make the rational choice, and eventually you learn how to do it. Yeah. And by repeating, it's becoming less scary, and you're much more aware, and yeah. So
Yeah.
I would say it like this.
Yeah, there's so many things. It's like to recognize, yeah, there will be fear, right? Because you've done it so many times and failed so many times in the past. It's like, but just to recognize that fear rather than, the whole avoidance thing is like avoid the triggers, put on the blockers, because like you said, that's all based in helplessness, because the idea is if I have access to this at all, I'm going to get out of control, and that is scary when you don't, rather than having a tool to know, okay, however I get triggered, because triggers will happen internally. They're not just going to happen externally, that I'll be able to, have the power in the moment to be able to think that through. I'll always have the same tool to do that. And, the therapist, bless their hearts. I mean, they seem like they're in the helping profession, but to tell somebody you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. I mean, I'm sorry, if you don't know how to help somebody and don't have a solution, don't tell them that they're stuck with this for the rest of their life. I mean, how daunting is that? And talk about depressing, and anxiety provoking. Here you are, you have this behavior is ruining your life, and now the therapist is telling you, well, guess what, dude, you're stuck with it forever. Now we can really diagnose you with depression, right? And as far as the meditation goes, it's really great that you have that established practice, right? Not to use it to, clear your mind for when you're wanting to engage in compulsive behaviors. But now that you know how to effectively do that, then the meditation is it can really enhance your life. You can really use that. It's gonna enhance the process. It's not going to take care of the compulsion, but as you deal with that compulsion directly, that meditation practice is going to really be a really positive thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And I think as well, the big difference between like the meditation versus the beyond compulsion method is the bit about dealing with the addictive part of the mind directly. So being aware of those thoughts and acknowledging, okay, this means really I'm, experiencing some compulsive desire now, or knowing exactly, okay, well, yeah, right now at this moment, I'm wanting to engage in my compulsive behavior, and actually just thinking it through rationally and having that ability to deal with the addictive part of the mind. And, I'd love to ask you just about your experience about learning about the addictive part of the mind, learning about junky thoughts, learning about unanswerable questions. How has that changed the way that you think about things, and therefore your life as well?
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting, because normally you don't think about those things, yeah? Especially the unanswerable questions. That's a very tricky perspective of what happens in your mind, and the junky thoughts. Yeah, it's like we all have them, and it's so interesting when you talk. When I was talking to my friend, she also wanted to somehow like overcome some addiction. So we talked, and she was telling me basically, like, she was listing all the junky thoughts that I had, and that, like we talked about, because like they're not really imaginative, they're not so creative, so it's very similar. But normally you buy it, yeah, you buy into it, and I was buying into it all the time. I remember like so ridiculous, such as I remember that somewhere I was reading some kind of scientific article that said that if you do not have orgasm like 3 times a week as a man, you are running into a higher probability of having a prostate cancer. Yeah? Which
boy.
served for me as a stupid junkie thought to engage more in masturbation than I needed. Yeah, and like, because when I started the program, Tom decided or advised me to stop with masturbation at all. And I couldn't really imagine that that would be possible. But then, like, and when I talked about this with some other friends, they were also like, "Oh, it's not possible, like physically. Like, what are you gonna do?" Yeah. Oh, so I tried and I just like, yeah, it's like I don't know how many months already, and I didn't end up in a hospital or something. My
Yeah.
my brain didn't explode or something. And so all these junky thoughts, like these like minor tricks, but yeah, like the more one is used to think or to engage in like some speculative way of thinking, the more these thoughts are actually active within us. Yeah, so I think that's also one thing that I wanted to mention or to bring up, which I think was a great advantage of the program, and that was the group calls that we had, like every week.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times is it now, but like that time it was like twice a week. We could go on a hour and a half call with some other members, and we shared the way how we feel and also our thoughts about this method and so on. So basically share our junky thoughts and our problems and our challenges and wins. And I think this already like showing up somewhere and tell these things to other people. That was very important for oneself to come up with it, you know, in a way that you're not hiding anymore. You know, you're not shameful, which is a great thing for this, because that's the trick of the addictive mind, that it wants you to hide somewhere and just engage. So you're doing exactly the opposite. And this is what I'm also doing here, being on this podcast, which kind of like is a scary thing, but I will always kind of like admire people that can share this, because I think it's such a massive problem in the society that I don't care about my kind of like safety anymore. So I would rather help as many people as possible to overcome this. So yeah, so step number one, like become less shameful about these things, and much more open. And then like get some kind of like a feedback, get some mentorship. Yeah, and that's what you were doing. You were correcting our thoughts, our way of thinking, and especially the way we used language. And yeah, that for me, that was really mind-blowing how that worked.
Yeah, the group calls, you know, they're so beneficial. And I remember the one where you were in the snowstorm, and there was just like so much joy that day. It was one of the best calls. And you know, now we have 3 additional calls. We have the straight line group calls, but then we have 3 calibration calls on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, which I feel is so beneficial for the guys to calibrate after each phase. And it's been really, really positive. And then anyone can attend those as well. But back to like the prostate cancer, you know, one of the, I think, great things about this method is it's this one thing. You do the one thing to attain the freedom that's going to consistently change those pathways, because you go out into the, you know, you mentioned the unanswerable questions. I mean, you go online and now here's this person telling you, if you're not masturbating 3 times a week, you're going to get prostate cancer. And then you got the other lady telling you that you got to retain your semen, the semen retention. And then it's like, no, you're really just going to be swimming around in your head and trying to answer these questions rather than going, okay, wait, I'm having compulsive desire. I'm going to treat it the one way I know to treat it and make a choice for myself in the moment, you know, based on what I know. And yeah, there's so much out there. And I think there's really a freedom in being able to disengage from all of that and just know, I know what to do at any given time. I know compulsivity. I know when I'm experiencing it, and I know how to treat it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's so much more empowering. And it's like the way in which someone tries to stop watching porn will determine whether they do succeed like long term, or whether they stay stuck in that cycle of jumping from one method to another, going round and round in circles. So once you have a method that actually empowers you to make rational choices and do it in a way which is very simple and just logical, then you can just stick to that, and it just kind of solves that one problem in your life, and then you can kind of move on to maybe solving other areas of your life and just continuing to sort of grow in other areas without always trying to figure out, well, how do I stop watching porn, right? Yeah, the other thing, Dan, that I wanted to bring up was, the group calls, as you said, you know, they can be really, really effective. And I think you're right. Like, a lot of people feel a lot of shame around it, and they've got all this stuff going on in their minds. So just to be able to come to like a group and have the awareness of, oh, I've got these different things going on in my mind, the addictive part of the mind saying this, oh, I've had these wins over the last week. Like, it can really help you just cement your understanding of how the method works, and really just increase your own like self-awareness, I suppose, of what's been going on in your mind. Like you said earlier, you know, you've been doing sort of meditation for like 25 plus years. So it's so cool to then actually have this next sort of level of things where you're aware of the different parts in the mind, and it's not just awareness temporarily and then back into addictive thinking without the awareness of the addictive thinking that's going on in that moment, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think like this group, to say, the way how you somehow grow and develop in a group is different to when you're just alone. And this is I know this also from the meditation practice, and that's because your mind is really full of bullshit basically, and I mean it comes from outside, but it also comes from inside. So these are the junky thoughts and some other strategies, and very often we cannot see through this and basically overcome this bullshit without anyone, like without someone else that talks to us, and like that we when we open, you know, we have this kind of different perspective. We kind of like overcome this self bullshitting, and I think that's great about these group calls. And I think it's a bit different from just, you know, like chatting and being part of some kind of like a thread, you know, because I remember being on some apps which were dedicated to overcoming porn compulsion, and it just didn't work. It wasn't really like that. It was lacking the, how to say, the human taste. Yeah. So we didn't meet in person, and like I'm probably like the only one in my country who's doing the BC method. There were people in the States, there were people in the UK, Netherlands. So we were meeting online, but at the same time, you know, we shared these personal things with at least the, you know, the at least part of the nonverbal communication. You know, like sometimes people were sad, they were kind of like, sometimes they were laughing, you know, and they were reacting and so on. Yes, they had some emotions. So all this was very much helping, and I think it cannot be overestimated how great this is, to be not just one who's struggling with it, but really like to be part of the group, and like it's this kind of like a grassroots um, mm, method or approach, when you know, like it's not just one leaf of grass that is growing, but it's more of it. Yeah, and you're just like uplifted by the whole movement. Yeah. So I mean, it started with you, Tom, and even like Mary shows us that it doesn't need to be used for only this method, but it's like the whole bunch of other compulsions. And then you have like the other guys who went through the program, and then you have like the newbies, and you all like kind of like support each other. So there's also like a great altruistic points to all of that. Yeah. So I think it's really great to be part of that. And although I was at the beginning, I was kind of like skeptical of going into some kind of program. I don't believe I would be able to do it without it. You know, if I just downloaded the videos, which I actually did at the beginning, and I failed. I just after a week, and then I needed to get a call from you, and started to go on a group course, and like do all the things that we already mentioned here.
Yeah, I want to mention a little bit about the group calls and shame, right? You know, there is a lot of shame around this particular addiction, and you know, we're not coming to the group calls to like, I mean, obviously you can have emotions there and share feelings and whatever, but we're not just talking about how ashamed we feel about this behavior and trying to identify the feelings and things like that. What we're doing there is very productive work where we're going to identify the thinking that's going to create the feelings and where the lies are in that, so that you can actually feel different about it, because the thinking comes first, right? So, and then, in the group, we're finding more and more, and Dan, you've been part of this as well, that, the guys there that have been in the program for a while and really understand are teaching, are helping the new guys. And Tom, you were just saying the other day how you were watching some of the new guys lighting up. I think it was one of the people in the program was sharing their experience, and these new guys who normally are kind of, there's trepidation and fear and like, oh my God, what's this going to be like? And then they're smiling and they're happy, because those group calls are not just a place to all kind of, get involved in each other's junky thinking and unanswerable questions, but to identify those things and correct it. And so, then everybody gets to benefit from that. So, and looking at the real, cause of the feelings of shame coming out of junky thinking, and how that can actually be changed so you don't need to feel that shame around this. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. One of the thought patterns I think so common amongst people who have this problem is like, is there something wrong with me? Maybe I'm different to other people. Like, why do I keep having these desires? Like, why do I have all these kind of thoughts? Like, is this normal? But then when you come to group and like you actually share the junky thoughts from like more of an observant place of, oh yeah, I had these thoughts, guys. This is what was going on in my mind. This is how I dealt with it using the script. You kind of really transform that thinking, because you just see like your beliefs change. You're like, oh yeah, there isn't anything wrong with me, because all these other guys are also having the same sort of thoughts. They're having the same experiences. They're using their script. They're getting all these benefits. Like, I'm not alone in this. Like, there isn't anything wrong with me. You really, really overcome the shame, but most importantly, you overcome the problem. You actually solve the problem, which is the key thing to do, which is so cool. And yeah, I'm sure in like the last few weeks, Dan, as you're kind of getting into, you've gotten into like the later stages of you being inside BCA, I'm sure you've been inspiring a lot of the newer guys, jumping on the group calls and sort of sharing your experiences and stuff. And I just love how we've kind of created that environment, I guess, where that is possible. And, hopefully you come on more groups in the future, maybe down the line, to inspire and sort of share your experience with other guys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the way how like drastically different this method is compared to anything that you listen to online is, it just blows my mind, like, and it's so new, so it's not so much spreaded as it should be. but yeah, like when you're online and you're not just dealing with this, but also like, I don't know, with productivity, habit tracking and stuff like that, which is probably like the most hunted thing on the internet, because we're such a like narcissistic productivity loving culture now. But I also do this, and I was always like failing, because I thought that it's like my problem, that it's, I don't know, like ADHD or whatever, and that I'm basically a lazy person and like minor, inferior, whatever. And then you realize it's not about you. It's you didn't get the right tools, and yeah, like somehow you got into this trap, and the easiest way how to get out of it is not by trying to, I don't know, like first of all, like do some kind of like discipline workout, push through it through willpower, because that's not gonna work. But it's neither using some sophisticated scientific, like magical thinking about it, like, I mean, it is interesting how the sense thinks about it, and how it understands the brain and everything, how it creates the distance from you being like ashamed by like having some kind of behavior. That's interesting, that it's not you, it's the brain, and the mechanisms are much more complicated. But I think it should stop there, because it will not It's super interesting. Like I'm like listening to different kind of like neuroscience podcasts and reading some articles, and they always end up with the same thing when it comes to addiction. They have a pretty stable description of how the brain works, and then they say and use some kind of substitutes, and you
Yeah.
have to find another goal. You have to motivate yourself, you have to delay the gratification, blah blah blah, which to me is like fascinating because how can you just like it just reminds me of a stupid analogy, but there's this drawing joke. Yeah, so how to draw an owl. You draw an oval. Yeah, that's the step number one.
Yeah.
And then step number two is like draw the rest of the owl. Yeah, so and you do the whole rendering and all the details, like beautiful thing like from Leonardo da Vinci or something like that.
Yeah.
But no one tells you how to jump from number one to number two. Yeah, and the way how to deal with it is using simple language and just like not getting complicated frameworks or concepts in your head. That's not going to help at all. And you can throw the whole science behind your back. I actually think that there's like such a massive difference between the way the science describes how these things work and the way how we perceive and how we act. Yeah, so you're not gonna learn how to play guitar just by reading some kind of scientific paper of vibrations and
Right.
I don't know neurons in your head. You just go and someone tells you what to do, or you just play with it. Yeah, and in this way, like in this particular context, it's the simple language that helps. Yeah, so we are not going into like specific descriptions of how the addictive part of the mind works here. We just call it addictive part of the mind, although it can be like different things. But it's much easier to say this because it always brings the focus back in the present moment, and it gives us the confidence, and it helps us to get through the discomfort of these urges. Yeah, and that's it. And it's it works like miracle. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, Dan. Honestly, it's really, really useful to us to actually get across to people like this is a real thing. It's not some weird scam or something. And yeah, hopefully, inspire other guys who are struggling because, as you said, you were skeptical before joining Beyond Compulsion Academy and I would be as well. But, there'll be people out there who listen to this and feel kind of excited to go, okay, let's try something different. There is nothing wrong with me. I don't have to do what the therapist has told me and be stuck for life. And I can get free. So cheers, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you, Mary, as always. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.